My girlfriend said she was going to a corporate leadership trip, but her best friend slipped up and sent me a picture of her in a hotel suite with her married boss. When she got back, her job was gone, and so was her place. I never thought I'd see something like that. My name is Alan. I'm 32 years old, and I live in Boston. That Saturday morning, I was sipping coffee at our small kitchen table when my phone buzzed. It was a photo from Madison, Jillian's best friend. I wasn't sure why she'd send me anything. She usually ignored me whenever she was around. But I opened it anyway, not expecting much. The photo showed Jillian, wearing a white robe, sitting in what looked like a luxury hotel suite. She was holding a glass of champagne, clinking it with Eric Dawson's glass, his other arm draped casually along the back of the couch behind her. Eric Dawson. Married. 3 kids. My heart pounded so hard I almost dropped my phone. I read the message that came with it. Oops. Meant this for someone else. Madison. She didn't even try to cover it up. My mouth went dry as I stared at the picture again. Jillian was laughing, her head tilted back like she was in some romantic movie. I felt my stomach twist. Jillian had told me she was going on a corporate leadership retreat for Apex Technologies, the company she'd been with for almost 5 years. She'd been so excited, telling me how it was a huge opportunity. She'd packed her best blouses, even bought new business cards. She had looked me in the eye and said she was proud of how far she'd come. I believed her. But seeing that photo, it was like a window into a world I wasn't supposed to see. One where I didn't exist. One where Jillian wasn't my partner, but someone else's plaything. My hand trembled as I put the phone down. The coffee in my mug had gone cold, and my breakfast sat untouched on the plate. I didn't react right away. My mind was racing, but on the outside, I felt oddly calm, like I was watching someone else's life fall apart. I didn't send Jillian an angry text. I didn't call Madison to demand an explanation. I just sat there, feeling the cold seep into my bones. I knew she'd be back on Sunday. She'd walk through the door with that bright smile, the one that used to make me feel like the luckiest guy in the world. I knew she'd come back with stories about leadership seminars and networking mixers. Maybe she'd even bring me one of those cheap mugs they always hand out at conferences. I'd play along. I'd smile. I'd ask polite questions. But inside, I was making a plan. Because that photo wasn't just a betrayal, it was a warning. And I wasn't going to let it slide. I had always thought I was a patient man. Turns out, I was just waiting for the moment I'd stop being patient. I looked around our apartment, at the little pieces of our life together. The framed photo from our first vacation, the stack of board games in the corner, the blanket she'd picked out because it was just the right shade of blue. They all felt like props in a play I didn't want to be part of anymore. I took a deep breath. I knew what I had to do. When Jillian came back, I wasn't going to yell or scream. I wasn't going to let her twist the truth or cry her way out of it. I was going to show her that photo, and then I was going to tell her she had 1 week to get out of my life. Because no matter how much it hurt, I wasn't going to be the fool she counted on to keep her lies safe. And so I waited. In that quiet apartment, with the photo burned into my mind and a hollow feeling in my chest, I waited for Jillian to come home. Because I was done pretending everything was fine. Jillian got back late Sunday evening. The moment she walked through the door, I could see she was in a good mood. She was all bright smiles and big gestures, chattering away about the leadership trip she'd just come back from. She set her suitcase down by the door and gave me a quick peck on the cheek, like nothing had happened. "Alan, you would not believe how intense those workshops were," she said, shrugging off her coat and tossing it onto the couch. "I learned so much. I even got you something. Hold on." She rummaged in her bag, pulling out a mug with the Apex Technologies logo on it. "Here," she said with a proud little flourish, "a souvenir. You should have seen the hotel, Alan. It was so fancy, but we barely had time to enjoy it." I took the mug from her and set it on the coffee table, saying nothing. My hands were steady. My heart was not. She went on, telling me about the different sessions and how she was one of the few chosen to give a short talk. She was excited, tripping over her words in her rush to share every little detail. I just listened, nodding occasionally, letting her think she was selling the lie. But inside, I was ice cold. Finally, she paused. "You're being quiet," she said, a little frown appearing between her eyebrows. "Are you okay?" I smiled faintly and leaned back into the couch. "I'm fine," I said. "Just thinking." "About what?" she asked, her tone light but wary. "About what you're not telling me," I said softly. Before she could say anything else, I picked up the TV remote and turned on the screen. I had already connected my phone to it, and with one click, the photo appeared on the big screen. Jillian froze. Her mouth fell open, and she went pale. For a second, she didn't move. Then she let out a shaky laugh, like she thought maybe she could still laugh it off. "Alan, what is this? Why do you have this?" I didn't answer. I just let the silence settle in. She shifted on her feet, her eyes flicking from the photo on the screen to my face. That's not what it looks like, she started, her voice trembling. It was just a toast after a long day. Nothing happened, Alan. I raised my eyebrows. Nothing happened? You're in a robe, Jillian. In a hotel suite. With Eric Dawson. She flinched at his name. Her fingers twisted together, and she looked at me with wide, tearful eyes. Alan, I swear, I didn't mean for you to find out this way. It wasn't serious. It was stupid. A mistake. I watched her, feeling something inside me turn hard and sharp. A mistake, I echoed. How long has it been going on? She opened her mouth, closed it again. A few months, she said finally, her voice small. But Alan, it didn't mean anything. It meant enough for you to lie to my face, I cut in, my voice calm, almost gentle. It meant enough for you to take his side over mine. Tears welled up in her eyes, and she reached out like she wanted to touch me. Please, Alan, I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. I love you. You know that, right? I leaned away from her. Don't, I said quietly. Don't say that now. She started to cry, really cry, big, gulping sobs that I'd seen a dozen times before when she didn't get her way. Please, Alan, I'm begging you. Let's just forget about this. We can move past it. I shook my head slowly. No, Jillian. We can't move past this. You need to pack your things. Her sobs turned desperate. Alan, please. I can't lose you. We can fix this. I'll end it with him. I'll do whatever you want. Just don't give up on me. But I was already done. I felt nothing but a cold, steady certainty. You have 1 week, I said, my voice flat. 1 week to pack your things and leave. She stared at me like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. You can't just kick me out, she whispered. This is my home, too. I met her gaze evenly. Not anymore. The room was so quiet I could hear the ticking of the clock on the wall. Jillian sank down onto the edge of the couch, her shoulders shaking. I stood there for a moment, looking at the woman I thought I knew, the life I thought I had. Then I turned away. I walked to the kitchen and poured myself another cup of coffee. She stayed there, crying softly, but I didn't go to her. I didn't comfort her. I didn't feel sorry for her. I just felt done. The days after that confrontation were a blur of half-packed suitcases and muffled sobs. Jillian tried every tactic she could think of. At first, it was the tears, the endless apologies. She'd come into the kitchen in the mornings, eyes red, and start talking like nothing had happened. I was thinking about making that salmon you like tonight, she said once, her voice bright and forced. I didn't even look up from my coffee. You need to focus on packing. Her face fell. Alan, please, don't do this. I didn't say anything else. I wouldn't give her the opening to twist my words or play the victim. By midweek, she shifted to guilt trips. She'd leave notes around the apartment, on the bathroom mirror, on the fridge. Notes that said things like, we're stronger than this, and remember our trip to Vermont? We can be that couple again. Every time I saw one, I tossed it in the trash. Then she tried to turn it on me. You're being so cold, Alan, she said one night as she folded a pile of her sweaters. I don't even recognize you anymore. I just shrugged. I think that's the problem. You never really saw me. She opened her mouth to argue, but I was already heading to the bedroom. I didn't have the energy to fight with her anymore. She started picking through my things, trying to claim them as her own. She'd put one of my sweatshirts in her suitcase or grab a stack of my records and say, but I always loved these. I played them more than you ever did. I'd just walk over, take them out of her hands, and say, no, those are mine. There was no anger in my voice. No heat. Just quiet finality. That's when it started to sink in for her. That I wasn't budging. That no amount of tears or gaslighting was going to change the fact that she had blown everything up. And she wasn't the only one who had. In the evenings, while she sat on the couch scrolling through her phone and sighing dramatically, I started gathering evidence. I pulled up credit card statements, hotel bills, and the photo Madison had sent. I took screenshots of every text Jillian had sent me from her work trip. Because if she thought she was going to move on to the next guy and leave me holding the bag, she had another thing coming. I spent hours at my computer, piecing together a story of misuse and betrayal. I knew Apex Technologies wouldn't ignore the fact that Eric Dawson had used company money for his little affair. And if they needed proof, I was going to give them more than enough. Sometimes, Jillian would come over, her voice soft, trying to sound reasonable. Alan, I know you're hurt, but do you really want to blow up my career over this? Can't we handle it like adults? I looked her straight in the eyes. You handled it like a child, Jillian. You don't get to lecture me about being an adult. She flinched. So that's it, she whispered. You're just going to destroy everything? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. She knew. The more I pulled together, the calmer I felt. Like every piece of evidence was a stone in a foundation I was building to get my life back. I wasn't just ending a relationship. I was reclaiming every part of me she'd tried to take. Jillian started to realize she couldn't break through to me anymore. Her tears didn't make me pause. Her half-hearted apologies didn't move me. And when she saw that I was still sleeping soundly in our bed every night while she tossed and turned on the couch, she knew it was really over. On Friday night, she looked at me across the living room, her voice raw and bitter. "You're heartless," she spat. I just gave her a small, tight smile. "No, I'm done." She looked away, and for the first time, I saw the defeat in her eyes. She didn't try to argue again that night. She just went to the bedroom and shut the door, and I stayed out in the living room, reading through Apex Technology's code of conduct, already drafting the email in my head that would make sure Eric Dawson couldn't just walk away from this. Because Jillian might have thought she could control the story. But I was done playing along, and I was going to make sure she and Eric learned that some betrayals come with a price. By Saturday morning, I had everything ready. I woke up early, even though I hadn't been sleeping much. Jillian was still in the bedroom, probably pretending to sleep so she wouldn't have to face me. I made coffee and sat down at the kitchen table, my laptop in front of me. The email was open, the evidence attached in a neat, orderly package. The photo of Jillian and Eric, hotel receipts that showed room service charges to the Apex Technologies corporate card, and a careful list of every time she claimed she was at a work retreat, but was really with him. I'd even included a couple of screenshots from her work email, stuff she'd left open on the home computer without realizing I'd seen it. I sent the email to Apex Technologies' HR department first. I kept it professional, short, and factual. Attached is evidence of Eric Dawson's inappropriate conduct with a subordinate during a company-funded trip. Jillian Lee was involved. Please review the enclosed documents. I clicked send and watched the little progress bar fill. It felt like something real was shifting in that moment. Like I'd stopped being the guy who just waited for things to happen and started taking control. Next, I opened a new email. This one was for Laura Dawson, Eric's wife. I didn't know her, but I knew she had a significant stake in the company. I wrote, "Laura, I'm sorry to send this to you, but you deserve to know. Attached are the details of your husband's affair with my girlfriend, Jillian Lee. Hotel bills, photographs, expense reports. I hope you'll use this information as you see fit." I read it twice, made sure it was calm and respectful. Then I clicked send. I sat there for a long moment after that, staring at the screen. My coffee had gone cold, but I didn't care. I felt steady, like a weight had lifted off my chest. Jillian came out of the bedroom eventually. She was still in her pajamas, her hair a mess, her eyes puffy. She looked at me warily, like she could sense that something had shifted. "Alan," she said slowly, "what are you doing?" I closed my laptop. "Finishing what you started." She swallowed hard. "Please don't make this worse." I stood up, my chair scraping quietly against the floor. "Jillian, this isn't me making it worse. You and Eric did that all on your own." She opened her mouth to say something else, but I was already walking away. I grabbed my keys and left the apartment without another word. I couldn't stand the thought of spending another minute there while she hovered, waiting to see if I'd cave. I took a walk around the neighborhood, just to clear my head. The sun was out, and the air smelled like summer. I watched a couple of kids riding bikes down the street, laughing and carefree. I wondered how long it had been since I felt that light. When I got back to the apartment, Jillian was gone. I didn't care where she went. I just sat back down and opened my laptop again. By late afternoon, my phone started buzzing. A number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, a text popped up. "Alan, it's Laura Dawson. Please call me." I felt a small, grim satisfaction at that. She had seen the truth. She knew. And I knew she'd make sure Eric couldn't just sweep it under the rug. That evening, as I sat on the couch, I checked the Apex Technologies website. It was still business as usual, but I could imagine the panic starting to ripple through those glossy boardrooms. I knew this was just the start. There would be fallout. Maybe even a scandal. But I didn't feel guilty about it. Not even a little. Because for once, the truth wasn't something I had to hide or swallow. It was something I'd put out there, calmly and deliberately. And no matter how messy it got, it was still better than living in a lie. I slept well that night. For the first time in weeks, I didn't have to wonder if I was doing the right thing. I knew I was. Jillian came back from work early on Monday, her face pale and her shoulders slumped. She didn't even look at me when she walked through the door, just dumped her bag on the floor and headed straight for the kitchen. I watched her from the living room, waiting to see if she'd try to keep up the act. She poured herself a glass of water, her hands shaking so bad she almost spilled it. She leaned against the counter, breathing heavily. Finally, she looked over at me, her eyes hollow. "I've been suspended," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't move. Good. She blinked like she hadn't expected that. "Alan, please. You have to fix this. You don't understand what you've done." "I understand perfectly," I said, standing up and crossing my arms. "You lied. You cheated. You stole company money to have an affair. And now you're facing the consequences." She let out a sharp, humorless laugh. "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" "No," I said calmly. "But I'm not going to save you from it either." She slammed the glass down on the counter so hard I thought it would break. I didn't do this alone. Eric was the one who paid for everything. You know that. They're making me out to be the only villain. I walked over to the doorway, leaning against the frame. Eric's going to get what's coming to him too. You both knew what you were doing. She wiped at her eyes, smearing her mascara. You don't get it, Alan. I could lose my job, my reputation, everything I've worked for. I tilted my head. And what exactly did you think would happen, Jillian? That you could just keep lying and nothing would ever catch up with you? She opened her mouth to argue, but nothing came out. For a second, she just stood there, breathing hard, her lips trembling. Then her expression changed. The tears dried up and her eyes narrowed, her jaw tightening like she was trying to hold on to any shred of control she had left. You're the reason this is happening, she spat. You're the one who sent those emails. You're the one who ruined everything. I hope you're proud of yourself. I didn't flinch. I'm not the one who ruined it, Jillian. You are. I just stopped protecting you from the truth. She let out a strangled scream and pushed past me, storming into the bedroom. I heard her rummaging through the closet, shoving things into a bag, her breath coming in ragged gasps. I didn't go after her. A few minutes later, she came back out, her bag half-packed, her eyes wild. I'm not leaving, she said, her voice low and furious. You can't make me leave. This is my home too. I stayed where I was, calm and steady. You have until tomorrow. One more day. After that, I'm changing the locks. She stared at me like she couldn't believe it. You're serious. I nodded. Dead serious. She let out a sob, part fury, part desperation, and shoved past me again, slamming the bedroom door behind her. I heard the lock click, but it didn't matter. I wasn't going to beg her to see sense. I wasn't going to waste another breath trying to convince her of what was already clear. For the rest of the night, I left her alone. I could hear her crying in there, the dull thud of her fist against the wall every now and then. But I didn't go in. I didn't comfort her. I didn't care. Because in that moment, all I could think about was how freeing it felt to finally be done. She could blame me all she wanted, but we both knew the truth. Jillian had torn this life apart long before I ever picked up that phone. And now? She was finally facing the mess she'd made. And I wasn't going to be the one to clean it up. Moving day arrived like a storm cloud, heavy and inevitable. Jillian was still in denial that morning. She was dressed in old sweatpants, her hair pulled up in a messy knot, moving around the apartment like she was just cleaning up after a long weekend instead of preparing to leave for good. I watched her from the kitchen doorway as she slowly packed a single box with clothes she never even wore. It was like she thought if she dragged it out long enough, I'd change my mind. You're supposed to be out by tonight, I reminded her quietly. She didn't look at me. I'm going as fast as I can. Not fast enough, I said. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. The weight of the past week was heavy enough. She dropped a folded sweater into the box and looked up at me, her eyes pleading. Alan, can't we just, I don't know, take a break instead of this? I shook my head. No, Jillian. We're done. You knew that a week ago. She wiped her face with the back of her hand, swallowing hard. You're really going to do this? Just throw away everything we had. I leaned against the wall, arms crossed. You threw it away when you decided to lie to me. She sniffled, her eyes darting around the room like she was trying to memorize every detail. I thought you'd fight for me, Alan. That's what people do when they love someone. Love, I said softly. You think this is about love? You didn't respect me, Jillian. That's what killed us. She didn't say anything to that. She just turned back to her half-empty box, her shoulders slumped. An hour later, the doorbell rang. I opened it to see Jillian's parents standing there, looking uncomfortable but determined. Her mom stepped forward first, her expression tight but polite. Alan, can we talk? She asked, glancing over my shoulder at Jillian. I nodded, stepping aside to let them in. Jillian's dad gave me a stiff nod before heading straight to her. What's going on here? Her mom asked quietly. Jillian said you're forcing her out. I'm not forcing her, I said calmly. She lied to me. She cheated. I'm not going to keep living with someone who betrayed me. Her mom's mouth tightened. People make mistakes, Alan. Marriage is about forgiveness. I raised an eyebrow. We're not married. And this isn't a mistake. It was a choice, one she kept making. She glanced back at Jillian, who was trying to hide her tears behind a curtain of hair. She's still your family, Alan. She's been a part of your life for years. Don't you think she deserves another chance? No, I said simply. Jillian's dad cleared his throat. Son, I understand you're hurt, but she's our daughter. We can't just let her be homeless. She's not some criminal. I sighed. She's not homeless. She's going back with you. She has family, and she's not my problem anymore. Her mom's face fell, like she'd finally realized I wasn't going to budge. So that's it, she whispered. After everything? I nodded once. That's it. They looked at each other, then turned to Jillian. She was biting her lip, trying to keep it together, but I could see the anger simmering just under the surface. I'll be in the car, her dad said to her quietly. already heading for the door. Her mom hesitated for a second, her eyes full of disappointment, then followed him out without another word. Jillian didn't move. She stood there with her box in her hands, looking at me like she wanted to scream and beg all at once. "You're really not going to help me with this, are you?" she said, her voice trembling. "No," I said. "You're on your own now." She let out a breath that was half sob, half sigh. "You're cruel, Alan." I didn't react. I didn't feel cruel. I felt like I was finally free. She didn't say anything else. She just grabbed her purse, hoisted the box up in her arms, and walked out the door. Her parents were waiting at the car, and I watched them load her things into the trunk. She didn't look back at me. Her mom said something to her as she got into the car, but I couldn't hear it. The car door slammed shut, and then they were gone. I stood there in the doorway for a long time, staring at the spot where Jillian had been. The apartment felt different already, lighter, somehow, like a weight had been lifted. When I finally closed the door, I felt a deep, quiet relief. No more lies. No more second chances. Just the truth and the clean break I'd been waiting for. It didn't take long for the fallout to hit Apex Technologies. By midweek, news was already spreading through the local business community. My friend Matt, who worked at a rival tech firm, called me the moment he heard. "Alan, I don't know what you did," he said, his voice half awed, half concerned. "But Eric Dawson? He's done. Fired." The company released a statement this morning: gross misconduct, misuse of company funds, ethics violations. His career's over. I leaned back in my chair, feeling a slow, steady satisfaction settle in my chest. "Good," I said simply. Matt was quiet for a moment. "And Jillian? She's out too," I said, my tone matter of fact. "They terminated her for breaching company policies. She's officially unemployed." He let out a low whistle. "Damn, Alan. You don't mess around. I'm done cleaning up after people who don't respect me," I said, and I meant every word. That afternoon, I stopped by the coffee shop near my office. I ran into Madison there. Of all people, the one who accidentally exposed Jillian's affair. She looked sheepish when she saw me, her face going red. "Alan," she said carefully, I didn't mean for it to happen like this. I swear." I just gave her a polite nod. "You did me a favor, Madison. Don't worry about it." She blinked, clearly taken aback by how calm I was. "Really? You're not angry at me?" I shook my head. "No, you didn't betray me. Jillian did." She let out a relieved breath. "Well, I hope you're okay." "I will be," I said, meaning it. A couple of days later, I got a text from an old friend, Kelly, who still worked at Apex. She told me Eric's wife, Laura, had filed for divorce the day after she got the evidence. She wasn't just angry. She was determined to take everything she could from him. She'd even started the process to have him removed from the company's board of directors, where he'd held a seat for years. I sat in my apartment, staring at that message, and let out a long, slow breath. Not out of sadness, out of relief. Because for the first time in months, the scales felt balanced. I thought about Jillian, too. I'd heard through the grapevine that she was staying with her parents. Jobless. Angry. Still telling anyone who'd listened that I was the one who ruined her life. But I didn't care. I didn't care if she blamed me or told her parents or her friends that I was cruel. The truth was simple. She had made her choices. She had played her games. And now she was living in the world she'd created. I spent the evening in the apartment, the quiet almost a comfort. No more whispered phone calls. No more second-guessing what was real and what was just another performance. Just peace. As the sun set outside the window, I realized I didn't feel guilty about any of it. Not even a little. Because when the dust settled, all I was left with was the truth. And that was enough. A month after Jillian walked out for good, the apartment felt like mine again. I spent a few quiet weekends rearranging the furniture, pulling everything into new places that felt fresh, clean. I got rid of her throw pillows, the candles she liked, all the little things that used to remind me of her. It wasn't that I wanted to erase her, just that I needed to make space for myself. I found I liked the stillness. There was no drama, no tiptoeing around conversations. Just me, a quiet apartment, and the soft glow of the morning sun through the windows. I started cooking real meals again, not just grabbing takeout because she said she didn't feel like cooking. I read the books I'd been putting off for years. I even took a weekend trip to Vermont, alone, and realized I didn't feel lonely at all. One afternoon, I ran into Madison at the corner cafe. She looked nervous when she saw me, her smile small and unsure. "Alan," she said, fidgeting with the cup in her hand, I'm really sorry about everything. About that picture. I didn't mean for it to happen that way." I sipped my coffee and gave her a small nod. "It's okay. You did what you had to do. It wasn't your lie to protect." She blinked, relief flickering across her face. Still, I felt like I broke something that wasn't mine to touch. I shrugged. "Jillian broke it a long time ago. You just showed me what I needed to see." She let out a slow breath. Thank you for not hating me. I don't, I said. And I meant it. She left soon after, and I watched her go, feeling a strange kind of gratitude for her accidental honesty. Word traveled fast in our small circle of friends. I started hearing bits and pieces. Some people said Jillian was telling anyone who'd listened that I'd overreacted, that I was cold and cruel. Others said she'd stop talking about it altogether, like if she didn't mention my name, the past would just go away. I didn't care either way. Let her tell whatever story she wanted. I knew the truth. And honestly, that was enough. Because no matter what she said, no matter how she twisted it, I'd taken back control of my life. A few weeks later, I was sitting in the living room, watching the rain tap against the windows. It felt peaceful, like the world was finally settling down. I thought about everything that had happened, about the photo, the lies, the final showdown that left her gone and me still here. For a long time, I thought I'd be angry forever, that I'd be stuck in the betrayal, in the way it had felt to watch everything I trusted slip away. But that wasn't what I felt now. What I felt was simple, relief. No more drama. No more pretending. No more giving pieces of myself to someone who only wanted them when it was convenient. I finished my coffee and stood up, stretching. The apartment was quiet, but it didn't feel empty. It felt calm. It felt like mine. I turned off the lamp, the last light in the room, and for the first time in what felt like years, I let the darkness settle in around me. No more half-truths. No more second chances. Just me and a new beginning.